Welcome back to our edition of The Art of You, Refining Your Life and Business video series. I have a few women which I've invited as my guest to be interviewed to be able to discuss their business and how they've achieved success in their businesses. Today with me in the studio we have Denise Duffield Thomas from theluckybitch.com, and she's going to be telling us a bit of her secrets and how she has created the success in her life and business. Now, Denise, welcome here. And I've just recently been on your website, which I believe is going to be changing soon. And I've noticed that you are almost the queen of manifestation. And
yes.
And that you've written a book called The Lucky Bitch. And
yes, it's actually just called Lucky Bitch.
Oh,
and my website's just luckybitch.com too. So yes, that's all about manifesting.
That sounds really exciting. I must say, I did buy the book myself. I have read it. It was a very good read, very interesting and very easy to go through. So I can highly recommend it to anyone who does want to read it as well. Well, Denise, let's start off with you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Australian. I grew up in Australia and then I spent most of my 20s living in the UK. And I would say up until quite recently, I considered myself a bit of a jack of all trades. I tried about 50 different jobs already in my life, from, really kind of mundane jobs to trying out kind of corporate life, which I didn't really like. And but I would say underpinning all of that was a real desire to work for myself. I've wanted to work for myself since I was a little kid, but I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do as a business. I just wanted to be in business. I didn't know how to make money from it. And I really experimented with a lot of things. And so now I live back in Australia after living 9 years in the UK, and I run a business that's becoming incredibly successful beyond my wildest dreams, which is amazing. And I run courses and programs for women, exceptional women who want to create outrageous success in their life and business. And as part of that, obviously I have my book Lucky Bitch. And, I also work one-to-one with women too. So I finally, after years and years of trying, I have found my little niche. And not surprisingly, it's something that really, if I really look back, it's something that I've always wanted to do ever since I was a teenager.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. And it's not often that a person really finds something that they're really passionate about that they can actually monetize as well. So how did you know that this was exactly what you wanted? We all get excited about and wanting to start our own businesses, but not often do you find something that really rings true. What was that one thing that made it ring true for you?
Well, as I said, in hindsight, if I look back over my career and life, working with women in an inspirational capacity around personal development is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I picked up my first personal development book when I was 14. It was called The Magic of Believing, which is actually really about the law of attraction, which is really interesting. And then I would say I went on a bit of a path in, doing Tony Robbins and going into the personal development industry from what I consider now to be very rah-rah, exciting. And I think the reason why I didn't follow that path into becoming a life coach and doing that stuff earlier is because I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the practical applications of a lot of the personal development industry. I loved the books. I loved the excitement. I loved going to seminars. I loved the walking on fire kind of thing. But I actually didn't know how to use it in any measurable way to actually improve my life on a day-to-day basis beyond just kind of getting excited. And so I tried various things. Like one of my very earliest jobs was speaking on stage. As when I was 17, it was doing crowd warm-up for children's shows. And then at university, I also took on leadership roles, which required me to speak on stage. And then my first job out of university was a job where I traveled the world speaking at conferences for university students on leadership and personal development. So when I said that, what I'm doing now, I could have been doing it a long time ago, but I lost my way in my 20s and went into the corporate world because I just didn't think you could make money from doing that. And also had to go through a lot of my own personal stuff because, in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have been a very good coach.
Yeah.
maybe I had to go through some life experiences, and I just didn't know you could make money out of it. Honestly, I didn't know how to, and I felt like a fraud. So I think for a lot of women, if you ask them and if you really dig deep, you'll probably, what you're meant to be doing is something you did naturally as a child or as a teenager before you kind of got scared by the world and thought, well, who am I to be doing this? And I would say that's true for most people. What you find you naturally good at, you always were good at it.
When it comes to working with specific people, you obviously have a specific target market, and as you mentioned, you have a niche. What type of person is attracted to what it is that you have to offer?
Well, I didn't have a niche when I started, and I felt like it was something magical that I had to find. It's kind of like the personal development thing, like when I read The Secret, and I thought everyone else must know the secret and not me, because I couldn't get it. I read it and I was like, but what do I do? And I felt the same kind of way with a niche when I started my business, because I did coach anybody. I coached men and women at that stage. I would coach anyone on anything. And I still sometimes get a few requests for things that I'm not that good at. But I had to, first of all, I had to learn what I was good at. But second, I had to give up the ego of being that jack of all trades, which was a very big part of my identity. It's like, give me a problem and I'll solve it no matter what it is. And it got to a point where people were contacting me for the most random things. And they would send me messages on Skype or Facebook saying, Denise, how do I do X, Y, Z? And I would go and research it for them and give it to them. And, that's kind of exhausting, because it's fine when it's just your friendship network. But when you start building a business and building a list, and suddenly it's hundreds and then thousands of people all looking to you for the answer, it's exhausting trying to be good at everything. So that's when I started narrowing it down. And actually the first thing that I decided, I tried to go, what's the easiest decision to make, and go work my way down. And I went, okay, I'm not going to coach men. That's an easy thing for me to decide. It's a line in the sand. I'm just going to coach women. And then I started, changing my website, because I was like, well, if it's for women, it can be really, feminine, or it can be appeal to women. And then I started to go, okay, what kind of people do I want to work with? And the majority of people I work with are entrepreneurs. And that's just the easiest way. So again, that's not a really hard line for me. I do work with people who are in jobs, but what I found is that if I worked with someone in a job, very quickly they would quit their job to go work for themselves. So I had to make that very clear, and that's another reason why I didn't want to go into, say, corporate coaching, because I knew that if I did, my client would be the company, and then suddenly all their employees are quitting to go start a business. So some of that's trial and error, but I would say for most people, like, don't get so caught up in the niche thing, thinking that it has to be like this perfect little box, because I think that can really stop some people from just getting out there and getting a client. Sometimes if you have no clients, it's just speculation anyway. Because it's not until you get on the phone with someone and start working through issues that you realize what you like and what you don't like. And that comes from experience. So I think until you've had at least kind of 10 to 20 clients, don't get so caught up in it, and don't let it stop you from going out and marketing what you do. You can just start with what is it that you do know you can help people with, and then you can refine it later on.
That's fabulous advice, Denise. Thank you. I liken it to being a doctor before you become a specialist. You first generally become a GP, and then once you've done that, you realize, well, this is not for me. I'd like to specialize in a certain area. And I suppose niching is exactly the same as well. And as you get more experienced in the industry, you determine, well, this is what works for me, and these are the people I enjoy working with. So it becomes a lot easier. What have been some of your most biggest challenges and fears in starting your business? Obviously, it's never easy. For some people, it could be a walk in the park, but for others, there really are fears and challenges. Did you have any that really, at some point in time, stopped you from moving forward?
Absolutely. I think when I was in corporate, I tried to do things kind of on the side, and that was a really good apprenticeship almost, and a couple of times I did quit my job to work on my business full time, and it never quite worked. And I think the reason why, the fear of telling people what I did was really, really great for me. I didn't want to tell people that I was an author. I didn't want to tell people I was a coach because I felt like a fraud. Okay. And one of the first things that I did, which I really recommend people do if they're feeling this, is I put in my email signature, Denise Duffield Thomas, author and coach. And it felt like a lie for the first couple of weeks, and then I started to feel a bit more comfortable with it, and then it just became who I was. So I think a lot of women do face that. It's that fraud kind of complex, or people are going to say, well, who are you to do that? And there's only one person that's ever said that to me, and it was when we moved to Australia and we rented a house, and the landlord was asking us what we did, and I said, I'm a life coach, and he goes, you're a bit too young to be a life coach, aren't you? And I thought, well, how old do you have to be? It's one of those things that you could say you're too young or too old at any age. And I know a lot of women face that. So that was a big challenge about the fraud kind of thing. And then I think the second big challenge is in the fear that comes up. And I get it every time. I don't think it ever goes away. I get it when I launch a new program. I get it when I launch a new book. I don't get it so much anymore in the smaller things that I did at the beginning. So at the beginning, I was terrified to even do a blog post, to do a newsletter, to send a solo email to my newsletter people saying, hey, guess what I've got a sale on? And I had to really work on those things that come up at the beginning of your business, which is, people are going to think I'm being too salesy, or people are going to think that I'm contacting them too much, or people are going to think I'm a bitch for asking for money. And, so I think you have fear at every level of your business. I think it just comes up in a slightly different way. The fear that I have at the moment, and I'll be really transparent about this, is that my business has grown to a certain level and it's starting to become, really successful. And I know that 2013 is a year for me of stepping out in an even bigger way. And that could be media, it could be doing a lot more speaking, and the same old fears coming up that it did when I first started my business, which is people are going to think I'm a fraud, or who am I to have this success in business, or the insecurity stuff of, well, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not skinny enough to speak on stage. Who am I to deserve that? And I always think, well, when I get to a certain point in my business, the fear will go away. And then I hear my mentors who are multimillionaires saying, guess what? The fear never goes away. And I'm like, crap. And I say that to my own clients as well when they say, I'm really scared. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really sorry. Like, the fear never goes away. But the good news is that you can learn to dance with the fear, and you can recognize it and go, this is just fear again. Wow, this must mean I'm due for a really big leap in my business.
Oh, that is so true. And I just love the way that you just wrap that all up. I often see fear as sort of like that circle, your comfort zone, and whatever it is that you already have is with you in the circle. But what it is that you really want or that you need to achieve is on the outside of the circle, and the fear is the boundary. You need to be able to push through that to be able to get to what you want on the outside of the circle. And it's almost like, you mentioned being a fake, and I've experienced that too. And I think everybody does the same thing. It's, I suppose, something like the be, do, have model. You really have to start being it first before you can do it and before you can have it. And when people start applying that concept to what they do, and they start being successful, being the author, being the coach, you know what, eventually you start doing it and you start having it. So it's fantastic, bit of information that you've just given us there. Thank you so much.
Yes, and you know what? You have to really acknowledge yourself at every stage when you do overcome a fear. Because when I first started out and I started doing interviews, I'd be up all night thinking, stressing about it and worrying about it. And now I'm just like, I'll slap on a bit of makeup and here I go, because I know now that I've said things so many times that it starts to become easy for you. So things do become easy. My first teleseminar, I remember sitting there and my heart was beating so fast and I was so scared about it. And, now I do teleseminars all the time, and I'm just excited to get on and spread my message with people. And that's really beautiful when you can start to transmute your fears in that way. Now different things scare me, but that's okay. You know that you're growing and learning all the time, and you're just mastering things.
If you really had to do this over again and you had to choose one thing that you would do differently, what would that one thing be?
Well, I had a real think about this morning, because in some ways nothing, because you just have to go in your journey of being an entrepreneur, and you learn things as you go. And I remember speaking to my coach, asking her questions about some really basic things when I first started, like, oh, I'm scared to put a blog post out, and hearing her answers, and she would say to me, one day this is just not going to be an issue for you. And it's really hard when you're in it to see the challenges as anything but, terrifying. So sometimes you just have to go through the journey of being an entrepreneur. You have to go through the journey of fear and being a novice, and then starting to learn, and then needing to leverage yourself, and then finally you become the CEO. And I'm stepping into the CEO role, which I think is coming over the next year. So I think the only thing that I would have done earlier is start outsourcing things, start getting help in my business. I've only just started to do it in the last couple of months, the last sort of 3 or 4 months, and I finally realized how good it is to have someone start something for you, and then you can do edits, or you can tell them what you want, and it's amazing. And I'm just starting to learn it. And again, that's something that, my mentors have said to me. When you realize this, and when you get the art of delegating, you'll wonder why you were so scared about it. So yeah, I probably would have done that a little bit earlier. But again, it's just kind of the journey that you go through.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I absolutely love watching you grow from strength to strength. So
Thank you.
How do you promote yourself? How are you going to take your business to the next level?
Yeah, so social media has been amazing for me. So Facebook is probably my number one business tool. And even still, I don't use it to its full capacity. So I currently don't do paid Facebook ads, which I will be doing more next year. And blogging has also been amazing for me. So when someone comes to me who's starting out their business, I say, okay, you've got to blog every week, and you've got to send a newsletter every week. Even when there's nobody on your list, that's how you build it. And you write that newsletter as if it's going out to thousands of people. And I think that's kind of everything that's underpinned my business. I've started my business knowing where it was going, or having a vision for having a very big business. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I did those very basic things, which is, blogging every week, sending a newsletter every week, and putting things out on social media. Really, they're the top things. And then you start to get into subtleties. So every time I've boosted my list by a big chunk in a month, it's because I've had a high profile guest post on a site that's very, very targeted to my audience, which is, young female entrepreneurs. And things that haven't really worked so much for my target market are things like article marketing, the traditional article marketing, like putting things on e-zine articles and stuff like that. LinkedIn has been okay, but it's not really my target audience. So it's really maximizing all of those things. And I think you start off with where you are, so it's like you start off with, very simple technology, and you upgrade it as you go. So for me, next year, I'm going to be doing a lot more video, because I feel like I can have that. I've got the capacity now to do that. But you just got to start, being really, really consistent. And I see a lot of women give up before the consistency actually sees any results, and get discouraged, and they go, oh, well, I sent out a blog post and I've still only got 20 people on my list. It's like, we have to do that over and over again. Or it's like, oh, I did this guest post and I only got, one extra person for it. Well, you have to do that over and over and over again. And it really is that consistency and persistence that really wins out more than being really clever with it, or more than being perfect. I think one secret to my success has been that I don't worry so much about being perfect. I've put videos out that have got mistakes in them. I've run courses before I was ready for it. I I did things with very bad branding, like terrible branding at the beginning. And I've just upgraded every time, and I've just made an upgrade to a course that I ran. And it's probably going to be good for about a year. And then in a year's time, I'll go, oh my God, what was I thinking? I need to upgrade that again. But in the meantime, I've put 100 people through that course. So you can wait until things are perfect, but you lose out on a lot of money and a lot of growth. And also lessons. It's great to learn that kind of stuff while your list is small, right? It's good to do your random blog posts and try out what kind of topics you like when there's not that many people watching. And, when women go, oh, I'm really scared to put my first blog post up, I kind of gently say to them, honey, not many people are going to see it at the beginning. Like maybe your mum and your best friend are going to read it. So don't worry about it too much. It's not like you're going to have, thousands of people sending you hate mail. That comes later on down the track when when you've got millions of people on your list and you'll be equipped to handle it. Don't worry about it so much at the beginning. Not that many people are watching in a good way.
That is true. And, I just love what you said about consistency being the key. It really and truly is. And also not giving up, because it's, I'm sure you must have read the book as well, Napoleon's Hills, Think and Grow Rich. In it, he tells a story of somebody who went and wanted to dig for gold, and they gave up 3 foot from gold. How often do business people, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs do that? They, just as they're about to get to that breakthrough, they give up. So I'm so glad that you've mentioned it. Thank you. So we've also touched on a lot of advice that you would give to other businesses. But one specific thing, what advice would you give to anybody who wanted to start out in business right now?
Just start. Literally start, use free tools, start a blog, start writing about what you're passionate about, and share it. It's really that simple. I mean, that's exactly how I started. And it doesn't matter if you start, but you're not quite sure if it's it's going to be your real business. I had many practice businesses, which kind of taught me marketing. It taught me regular discipline. So it doesn't really matter. One of my first things was internet dating for men. And then I did a whole blog around movie reviews. And then I did a green detox site for a little while. And then I did stuff about weddings. So, it's okay to practice, but just start today.
Well, that's good advice. And you gained so much experience by trying the different things, because that's how you eventually found out what it is that you really do love to do.
Exactly. And that's why I never would say it's a failed business. It's a practice business. I really got that when I sat and forgave myself for all of my past business mistakes, because I was using those to make it mean that I wasn't meant to be an entrepreneur, and I wasn't meant to have this freedom that I so desperately wanted. And when I really sat down and went, wow, that taught me, marketing, that taught me blogging, oh, that taught me public speaking, oh, that was a mistake, but it taught me something. When I forgave myself for all of those, and I went, okay, well, here's what I truly want to do, and it's time.
Yeah, and it's like having to go through that experience as well to get the lesson from it. And often things arrive in your life and you think it's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Well, it isn't. Sometimes there's a gift in it, and you being able to see that as a gift is absolutely an amazing thing too. You speak a lot about forgiveness in your book as well. Just let's go off the topic quickly, and if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit about that. Tell us, why you're so big on forgiveness.
Well, for me, forgiveness is the key to accepting a beautiful life for yourself. If you have a lot of crap from your childhood, it can really it can block amazing things happening to you now, because deep down you just don't feel like you deserve it. So I look at forgiveness from many, many different angles, and I do it on all of my courses with my clients. So if it's on our money course, we go through things like money memories that you need to forgive, and people come up with amazing things that you think was just a small incident, but it actually, at that point in their life, made a decision about who they were and what they deserved in the world, and that translates to who you are as an adult. So forgiveness is really giving yourself a deep spiritual cleanse and letting you start from scratch and letting you really receive the good things that are available for you. I've been doing forgiveness on and off for about 5-6 years, and I never run out of things to forgive. And because it's just, I want to just open up my ability to receive more and more. When I first did forgiveness work, it cracked it open about this much. And then every time I do it, it's just like, I'm just getting better and better at receiving because I know that I deserve it. And I've seen transformational things happen to women who go back and forgive. So I suggest if you want to manifest a soulmate, go back and forgive every relationship you ever had. If you want to manifest more money into your life, go back and forgive your parents and yourself for everything related to money that you can remember. And, and more and more and more. So, I sometimes go a bit overboard with forgiveness. When I first wrote my book, I didn't want anybody to read it because I thought, there's going to be a spelling mistake in it. And I was thinking really bad thoughts about my book. And so finally I did a forgiveness ritual on my book and said, I'm so sorry for treating you like this, and I forgive you for having mistakes and not being a perfect book. And after that, I was fine with selling it. But before then, I was blocking people buying it because I blamed it, and so you can look at it from a big overall perspective of everything that's happened in your life, but also when things aren't going well on a day-to-day basis, you can see, okay, well, what can I forgive here? I've had people forgive the IRS, the government, the president, the prime minister. I've had people forgive greedy bankers, in general. I've had people forgive pets, as well as the big things, the obvious things that you can think of, which is, forgive your mum and your dad for your childhood. Yeah. But it really is just a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful philosophy in life that you can always find more to clear.
Yeah, and it's sort of having that, it's a powerful surrender. There is a powerful surrender in forgiving. When it's the release, it's that letting go for the new to come and the new to flow in. I think it's lovely. Absolutely. Yeah. If there's one resource that you just can't do without in your business, what would that resource be?
For me, it's the technology, that we have on the internet. So it's Facebook is probably my biggest technology. Skype is a big one. Like anything that can connect me to the world, because I live in Newcastle, Australia, but I serve clients all around the world, and I want to keep it like that. So for me, having a good internet connection makes my business run in every way. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm also grateful for PayPal and blogging sites and in Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And I see as entrepreneurs, we're getting more and more resources to help us do our jobs and to help us spread our words. So I'm incredibly grateful for technology.
That's fabulous. Now, if anybody wanted to work with you, Denise, or they wanted to get your book or any other resource that you have to provide, where would they find you?
Well, the good thing is I'm really easy to find because there's no Denise Duffield Thomases in the world. It's a unique name. And my new website is luckybitch.com. And you can find me on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. My book is also available on Amazon. But if you come over to my site, luckybitch.com, you will get my manifesting guide. So it's kind of the principles really distilled down into my favorite manifesting tips. And I get emails from women all around the world every day telling me what they've manifested from that. So come over to luckybitch.com and grab that for yourself.
That's awesome. And in closing, one last thing that you would just like to add on or share?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, all those times where I was really dreaming of freedom, and it's even better than you think. So if you've been wondering when it's going to happen for you, I just want you to trust, put your hand on your heart and just say, it's my time and I'm ready for the next step, and things will start to shift in your life. But it is amazing. It's amazing having that freedom, flexibility, and I really wish that for everyone listening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, Denise. It was lovely hearing, about your story, the insights and the tips that you shared. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of golden nuggets that anybody who's watching this can take away. So thank you once again for joining me on this interview series. I really appreciate it a lot.
So welcome. Have a beautiful day.
And you too. Bye.
Bye.